Welcome to Cohesive Friendship Unit. My name's Chris. I'm here with Jeremy,
What is up?
Jake,
Hey guys.
and Brian.
What's going on?
We're going to be diving into sales numbers today. We're doing spreadsheets. Get your Excel equations out. We're going to be looking at the top 20 games, physical and digital. This comes from NPD Group, a retail tracking service. We're going to look at the top 20 games across all platforms, and then we're going to go down deep diving into Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. Talk about. I think it's kind of eye opening. It really does show their individual strategies and maybe how some of them are more effective than others when you then take those individuals and bring them up into the all platforms to take a look. But we will get into all that. I do want to start with the all platforms. So the first thing, we can all, take turns just poking at different things that we notice. But the first thing that I want to just call out that Jake was quick to call out too is like, damn, Call of Duty, shit. Like, Call of Duty takes up not just the number one with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Wow, speaking of, we were just talking about software releases, and they have like a colon for Black Ops and then another colon for what version of Black Ops are on. Call of Duty has the number one rank for purchase games, physical and full games across all platforms. And they have the number two spot. That's kind of crazy.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, for a game that was released in 2019.
Yeah, Modern Warfare came out in 2019. And I think we all, I don't know, at least in like the quote gamerverse, Call of Duty's kind of dead. It feels like it peaked in like 2010.
Yeah, I mean, I still know a lot of people that play Call of Duty. Like, I think everyone that's not in like the gamer sphere plays Call of Duty, and probably some form of like sports game as well. So I'm not shocked that Call of Duty's up there. I kind of feel like Call of Duty belongs there because like everyone in the world knows Call of Duty.
But both Call of Duties?
Both is that's like a little insulting to gamer culture, I think.
Gamer culture.
I think it also goes to show that this, or maybe it's reflective of the fact that this, like, as we've discussed, wasn't really a great year for like new releases. Like, there weren't that many new games that came out that really kind of took the limelight. So, Call of Duty is a super popular, franchise with like casual gamers. Maybe if Cyberpunk hadn't been like a total clusterfuck, that would have been near the top.
Yeah, I guess since you brought up Cyberpunk, granted it did come out in like early to mid-December, so it's kind of hard to claw back ground there, and digital sales are not included for Cyberpunk in particular, but that hit number 19, right above Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. So I don't know if that is because of how late it came out. I don't know if that's any indicator if Cyberpunk was maybe not selling as well as they hoped, or if the horrible coverage of that game has kind of rubbed off on consumers.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all the sales they're going to be getting. The coverage on that was immediate and vicious.
And that was that was like a Christmas release. Like, it had every opportunity, I think, to be picked up and sold well.
And it did sell well, right? It broke the top 20. Like, it's not like it.
Yeah, but their whole thing was they were going for number one.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I think this list is probably misleading for Cyberpunk, though, because their sales, they set like concurrent player records on Steam with their sales. I think the number of people that bought this game on Steam would probably push them to number one easily.
Or even GOG, which is CD Projekt Red's own platform. Like, they own their own digital distribution platform on PC.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it literally got pulled off the PlayStation Xbox store.
Yeah, that is also a good point. They made it to the top 20 even with getting pulled off after like 2 weeks of sales.
I wonder if that includes the refunds issued, though. Like, do they deduct those sales?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like, if they sell a copy of the game, but then the person returns it because it's broken, does that count as a sale or not?
Guess we'll never know. I'll email.
Just raw sales, like, it doesn't count that.
That's what I figured.
They're not expecting that you're going to return it.
because it's
It's
our
not a
favorite
mass
word of
return.
2020. It's unprecedented to return a game that you buy new. All right. Well, then, at least my kind of next and final observation, and obviously, if you guys have more, we can dig into it deeper. Well, actually, I have two more. But Animal Crossing New Horizons hitting number 3 did surprise me. I understand that it's a casual game, and a lot of my casual video game playing friends picked it up, but I did not expect it to be the third most purchased video game next to Call of Duty.
People got addicted to
Yeah.
it. Like you and Jake were fucking addicted to Animal Crossing like when it came out. You were talking about the turnip economy and all this shit.
Right.
It was
I
You
mean,
still
the
gotta
game
buy
is
the game,
good.
though.
that was a timing thing though. Like I think that's a 2020 artifact. You're not gonna see something like that again. Like that came out right when the pandemic was like first starting to get real here, at least.
For sure.
And people were getting locked down, and it's like, oh, now we can do this. So I think that was I mean, Animal Crossing is kind of designed to be addictive like that, but I think that was mainly a timing thing.
Yeah, they couldn't have picked a better environment to launch that game. And I think the more interesting part, in my opinion, is that all those sales means every single person owns a Switch. You know, like everyone and their mother owns either an Xbox or a PlayStation or has some way of playing Call of Duty, but not everyone owns a Switch. And the fact that Animal Crossing is up there at number 3 with Call of Duty means there's a shit ton of people who own Switches out there. Like,
That is a
way
really good
more than
point.
I would have thought.
Yeah, this is the first console exclusive in that top 20. This is the first one that shows up. And then
Yeah.
the next 2 games after that are multi-platform as well. So yeah, pretty. I don't know. I was impressed with Isabel and Tom Nook making it way up there. And then the last thing I had personally was Dragon Ball Z Kakarot making it onto the top 20, beating out Cyberpunk. ... Well, I mean, we already talked about Cyberpunk, but still, it did surprise me that in 80s, well, I guess 80s, 90s, depending on your country, anime having a video game 2020 adaptation in the form of an RPG made it onto the top 20 list. That just surprised me. And maybe it's just because gamers are fucking nerds, but still surprised me.
I think Dragon Ball Z is having like a small cultural moment. So I was very surprised too, but like it kind of feels somewhat fitting. And I think again reflective of like not a ton of other releases competing for space this year. Because again, as we've also said, Nintendo specifically, almost all the games that sold well on the Nintendo side were old releases, and there are a number of other old releases here too. So just not a lot of new games on the list, period, in a way.
Yeah, I think the only newish game that I'm kind of happy to see on this list is Ghost of Tsushima, which I haven't played because I don't own a PlayStation, but I know a number of people who've played it, and they said it is an amazing, amazing PlayStation game. And it's like it's not a ripoff of something, you know. It's not a Call of Duty, it's not a sports game, like most of the things on the list. It's pretty original, and falls in the like PlayStation high quality exclusive area.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Anything else we want to talk about on this top 20 list before we break it down into specific platforms?
Not on the top 20.
I do want to call out that a lot of these games that are on here are generally considered in the like gaming world to be like top tier shit games. It's kind of very ironic and kind of telling that maybe we're not as big of a force as we think, but there's like dumpster fires on here,
Yep.
like Marvel's Avengers, NBA 2K21, Cyberpunk.
Right.
Like, these are regarded to be like some of
FIFA.
the shittiest games of this year, and they're on the 2020 top selling games. Clearly, we are not learning our lesson here, and we just buy garbage all the time.
It would be interesting to see how like the actual numbers stacked up against PC and digital sales. Like with digital sales included, how this all stacks up against Steam's stuff. and like the other digital platforms, because gamers, I don't think, like the gamer with a capital G, I don't think is really playing consoles anymore, and I don't think it's been that way for a while.
I agree, but it's still kind of a bad look on the industry. So, like, basically, people are buying rehashed microtransaction riddled messes, is basically what's shown by NBA 2K, FIFA, Cyberpunk's a fucking train wreck. People are paying for that, regardless of whether you're a gamer capital G. That's like what's selling, you know? And I think that's not great. That's not a good look because that's what the publishers see, you know? That's where the dollar signs are.
And this does include Steam, like, which is overwhelmingly the largest online, you know, PC game vendor. So nothing from Steam World like topped, you know, the console included big games.
Yeah, I think that's the big caveat of Cyberpunk does not include its digital sales. But like, if you go anywhere on YouTube, you're gonna see that like, don't buy Marvel's Avengers. It's total shit.
Don't
like,
buy
that's
Cyberpunk.
Everywhere.
It's
don't buy
shit.
Cyberpunk, and yet they're still on the top sellers list. So like Chris is saying, like the industry, like where we are right now, is saying these games suck, but the sales are saying a different number.
You're also looking at a limited selection, though. Like a lot of those are cross-platform, and if it comes out on every console, and there's only so many games that come out on the console, you know, the relative, like you're gonna sell more of that because you don't have a choice,
right?
You can't buy like the 3-man indie game, the stuff that Steam has that's
sure,
you know, would never make it onto a console,
or even that gets onto a Best Buy shelf.
Yeah, right. That's a fair point.
Yeah, it
that kind of ties into because Call of Duty is like the stereotypical like corporate video game, you know, like it's just the same shit and they get you to pay for it every single time, and it's like, okay, so we're gonna drive our sales by offering this on the popular platforms, and that's what you're gonna have to play. So if you want to play kind of a mainstream shooter, you're playing Call of Duty, and you're gonna sell more because that's all you can pick from, or your selection is way more limited.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Xbox. Speaking of narrowing in platforms, the thing that I most noted on Xbox is they do not have a single exclusive on this list. Every single one of these games is a multi-platform game, which to me begs the question, why the fuck would you buy an Xbox right now? Or, I mean, that's not to say that they're not releasing games. They released like Ori Will of the Wisp and stuff, but they are clearly not making as big of an impact as they want to be on the exclusive front.
They're getting ready for takeoff, but they've been getting ready for takeoff for a while.
For like a year and a half now.
Like, I'm not super surprised that it doesn't show any exclusives, but like you'd expect something to at least get into the, not Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Mr. Hawk, but you know, it's not 2001 anymore.
I'm not really sure that Microsoft cares that they don't have any exclusives. Because if we're being honest, like they don't have any exclusive at all. They release on Xbox and Windows, so they don't have true exclusives, period. But I don't think that's what they're going for. I mean, hell, I went out and bought a box of Cheez-Its and I got 2 weeks of Game Pass for free.
Did you actually do that?
I 100% did. It's like
God.
$3 for Cheez-Its, and now I get to play games for 2 weeks.
We've been memeing about that for weeks now.
But like that's it. Like you could go out and buy Cheez-Its and play literally any Microsoft game for free, essentially, for 2 weeks. Like I don't think that's what they're going for. They're just going for the Game Pass bait.
True. Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about that. Like they're not necessarily trying to sell. They're trying to sell you Game Pass. They're trying to get you into Game Pass, and that will never show up on a chart like this because that's not a sale. Like, yeah, if you buy your Cheez-Its, Jake, so that you can play Halo Infinite, that is not going to show up on the top sales chart, but it will make Xbox a lot of money ultimately.
All right, that's a good point. There are big games like a Halo and in this case, Gears 5, they're probably not going to show up because no one really bought those. No one bought like a copy of it.
But they paid money to play it.
Right. Like I paid to play Gears.
Yeah,
for like a month.
Yeah, I paid for Flight Simulator. I paid for Gears. I'm gonna buy in now a Bethesda, or now Xbox owns Bethesda. I'm gonna buy in, play Doom Eternal, probably this month. So yeah,
get some Cheez-Its, man.
Yeah,
I
get
guess
a couple
so.
boxes you can play for like a month.
Yeah, there you go.
Anything else we want to mention on Xbox? All right, so to move into PlayStation, we're kind of going on a trend. We're going from no exclusives to PlayStation's about split 50-50 on exclusives. I think it's 60-40. But they do have exclusives, and the thing that I noted before we kind of went on talking about this are the exclusives all came out this year, like Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy Remake, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, MLB The Show, all came out in the year 2020, which I thought was interesting. Obviously, in the top 20 list, that is a trend that we saw for sure. But when we move over to Nintendo, you'll see that that's not necessarily the case. They have a lot of evergreen content that seems like Sony just doesn't have or something.
Well, I think with Nintendo, you have less choice. Like, there's just literally fewer good games to choose from. Whereas Sony put out, four exclusive major titles, which I think mostly people regard to be good. Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy, I guess, Miles Morales. Those are all considered to be like decent games. If you're like a teenager, if I was a teenager, those are the games I would want to play. But they also put out like 4 or 5 equally good games the year before, and 4 or 5 equally good games the year before. Nintendo's only putting out like 2 new good games a year.
Yep. And they have no third party.
PlayStation games are not like evergreen, as Chris said. I like that term.
Yeah.
Like Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us, Spider-Man, Final Fantasy, those are all like you play it once and you're done. And all of Nintendo's games are either just totally replayable, or they're like Mario, where they have a story and then you just do all the collectibles for like a year. Like every single game they have is pseudo infinitely replayable.
Yeah, very true. Or multiplayer.
Or multiplayer,
yeah.
Well, speaking of the big N, let's finish up with them. They had all exclusives. Literally, the top 10 Nintendo Switch sales are all Nintendo exclusives, which to me says, holy shit, they're making a ton of money on their own software, because they get 100% of all those digital sales and physical. Like, they're making money on their platform. And like we kind of alluded to with the evergreen content, I mean, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out in 2017. It really came out in 2015 if you count the Wii U version. Smash Ultimate 2018, Zelda Breath of the Wild 2017, Mario Odyssey 2017, and even within all that, like you could look at the Super Mario 3D All Stars. Those are like 20-plus-year-old games that got re-released. So they are really doing okay.
Luigi's Mansion 2019.
Yeah.
So like I think this really just reflects like very underwhelming year in terms of Nintendo releases. Like basically 1 or 2 new titles doing well at the top of the list. Also, what in the ever living Christ is Ring Fit Adventure?
Oh, dude, Ring Fit's popping off in the Philly scene.
It's the COVID like Get Fit.
You use a Pilates band that talks to you.
Pilates band?
People love it.
Exercise band?
Everyone at my work does it.
Yeah. They were sold out for months.
Huh, weird.
I think that's another COVID thing that Brian was talking about, where like the gyms were closed.
So you gotta get your talking Pilates band and your Switch.
And if we think that's kind of the case, then like the 2 top selling new games in this list, both are kind of only because COVID was a thing and people wanted to work out and have a second life. Like, I don't know, Nintendo, put out games. Come on, man.
Yeah, put out games.
Yeah.
More games.
But, I mean, I do think, I guess the last thing I'll say on like a more positive note for Nintendo is, I would say If I had to pick between having these 10 games, like the 2020 Nintendo top 10 games, the 2020 PlayStation games, and the 2020 Xbox games, I would probably pick the Nintendo list. Like if they were like, these are the games you get for, I don't know, a long time, I'd be like, oh, yeah, you know, you get some multiplayer in there, you get some single player in there, you get some Guigi in there.
I agree. If someone was like, these are the 10 games you get to play this year, I would pick Nintendo too.
Yeah.
I agree as well, but if I were a teen, I would pick the PlayStation title.
PlayStation's second for sure.
I think it's interesting because like it's a side effect of, I think a lot of this at least is a side effect of Nintendo's like family friendly image, I guess. Like you could give a lot of this stuff to like a 5 or 6 year old kid and not worry that like they're going to be seeing violence or whatever if you're concerned about that. And I think that way more people have memories of Nintendo stuff from when they were kids, and maybe they're, you know, okay, now we're stuck in lockdown, let's get the kids something to entertain themselves. Like people who were playing Smash as kids now have kids of their own. And like that's something that when you're talking about evergreen content, you're not getting that with Madden. Well, I mean, you're kind of getting that with Madden, but like it's not as Nintendo is like the whole package. They have the image and the you know, everything is very integrated and it fits in with every kind of aspect of their marketing and all that. And I think that, I mean, all their top 10 games are their own. It works, and they have, it's weird, and it's not really a conventional console if you're taking Xbox and PlayStation to be conventional consoles, but what they have clearly works for them, and it's clearly been working for them for a while.
Yeah,
I don't know, and I agree with you guys. Like if you got to pick one, this is the one to pick, because you got Nintendo has like stuff you can play with other people, things you can play by yourself, and it's not just 2 COD games and Madden and NBA, and like those, they're the same. It's different people in the game, but the game, you're still playing basketball. Basketball hasn't changed since it was invented. So like, you know, there's not really going to be anything new there. You're just buying it because it's like microtransactions except bigger, and that's fine if that's what you like, but you know, it's not, I don't really see that as that much fun. Nintendo's stuff is like there's more thought put into it, and that wraps into their whole thing is like we're trying to deliver something that's quality, not just we'll put whatever people will pay for on our platform.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry about that.
No,
that was
dude.
a long one.
Nah, big agree. Big
Hundo
agree.
P.
And it's saying a lot that like 5 out of the 10 games on the top 2020 for Nintendo are some derivation of a Mario game, and we're still interested in that. If this was just like 5 Call of Duty games, I would be like, no, screw that. I'm not doing that. But like 5 Mario games, like sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brian, what should our viewers be doing right about now to get a hold of our evergreen content?
Well, if you want to get a hold of our evergreen content and get the evergreen part of it, like you get notified of when we come up with new shit, post new shit on the channel, you should consider subscribing, because you know, if you watched this far in the video, you probably liked it. And if you have any thoughts on the interesting patterns that we've seen here in the data, you could leave those thoughts down in the word box there. We love reading your comments. And oh, by the way, another benefit of subscribing, we do occasionally give away things here on the channel, but you got to be subscribed to get said things. So subscribe, won't you? Thank you. And smoke them if you got them, guys. That's all for me tonight, Chris.
All right. Thank you, Brian. We'll catch you guys next time.